You are leaking energy right now and you don't even know where it's going. Not through anything dramatic, not through some big mistake you made, through something so small, so ordinary, that you've never once stopped to notice it happening. A habit, a tiny, repeated motion in your day that quietly drains you before you've even had a chance to start living it. Somewhere on the other side of the world, there's a culture that figured this out a long time ago. Not through willpower, not through motivation speeches or forced discipline, through something quieter, through attention. And once you see what they do differently, you're going to start noticing the leaks in your own life, one by one. If you're the kind of person who watches something like this and actually tries it, hit subscribe now, because what comes next is going to rewire how you look at your entire day. Let's start with the first one, because it's the one almost nobody expects. In Japan, there's a quiet custom of pausing at the doorway, not for long, just a breath. Shoes come off, and in that half second before stepping inside, something shifts. The outside world, with all its noise and friction, gets left at the threshold. What comes in is just you. Think about your own front door. What crosses it with you? The tone of an email that annoyed you, a conversation that didn't go how you wanted, the weight of 100 small frustrations you never actually put down. You carry all of it inside, into the one place that's supposed to be yours. And you wonder why home never quite feels like rest. That pause at the door isn't about shoes. It's about a boundary. A line between who you had to be out there and who you actually are in here. Most of us never draw that line. We just let everything bleed through all day, every day, until there's no difference between at work and at home except the furniture. The second habit is even quieter, and it happens with tea. Not coffee grabbed on the run, not a drink consumed while scrolling. Tea made slowly, poured with attention, held in both hands. There's a whole tradition built around this, but you don't need the tradition to understand the principle underneath it. The principle is this: some moments are meant to be done with your full presence, not squeezed in around everything else. Here's the uncomfortable question. When was the last time you did anything with your full presence? Even eating? Even showering? We've turned almost every quiet moment into a container for something else. A podcast, a scroll, a mental replay of tomorrow's problems. We're rarely just where we are. The tea isn't the point. The undivided attention is the point. And once you notice how rare that has become in your life, you start to understand why you feel tired even on days you didn't do very much. It's not the doing, it's the divided doing. Here's something worth knowing before we go further. Everything you're hearing so far is really one piece of a much bigger picture. Why? The way small daily rituals reshape not just your energy, but your entire nervous system over time. There's a full breakdown of this, habit by habit, with the exact sequence that makes them stick, sitting in the link in the description and in the first comment. If today's video is already shifting something in you, that's where the rest of it lives. Stay with me though, because the next few habits go somewhere you're not expecting. The third habit shows up in something as plain as walking. Watch someone in Japan walk to a train station during rush hour. It's fast, but it isn't frantic. There's a kind of composure to it, even in the middle of crowds and schedules. Nobody's elbowing forward. Nobody's radiating stress into the people around them. Urgency without chaos. That's a skill, and most of us never learned it. Compare that to how you move through your own rushed mornings. Jaw tight, shoulders up near your ears, moving fast, but also moving angry, like the world owes you an apology for making you late. That tension doesn't disappear when you sit down at your desk. It stays in your body, quietly using up energy you'll need later. Composure under pressure isn't about being unbothered. It's about not adding extra friction to friction that already exists. The train is already going to be crowded. Does your body need to be tense about it too? The fourth one is going to surprise you because it looks like nothing. It's cleaning. Not deep cleaning, not some elaborate ritual. Just the small, repeated act of tidying a space before leaving it, and tidying it again before entering it. Shopkeepers sweeping the sidewalk outside their store each morning. Students cleaning their own classrooms at the end of the day. It's not about hygiene. It's about respect for the next version of the space, and by extension, the next version of yourself. Now think about your own environment. Your desk, your car, the corner of your room you've stopped seeing. Clutter doesn't just sit there neutrally. Every object out of place is a tiny, unresolved decision your brain has to step around. Again and again, every single time you're in that room. You don't notice it consciously, but it costs you something every time. That's the pattern starting to form now, isn't it? None of these habits are really about tea or shoes or sweeping sidewalks. They're about reducing the number of small, invisible costs your mind pays throughout the day. Multiply those costs by hours, by days, by years, and you start to understand where all your energy has actually been going this whole time. The fifth habit lives in how meals are treated. Before eating, there's often a quiet phrase spoken, something close to, "I humbly receive this." It sounds small. It isn't small. It's a moment of acknowledgement before consumption, a pause that says, "I am about to take something in, and I'm going to notice that I'm doing it." Most of us eat like it's a task to get through. Standing at the counter, driving, half watching a screen. The food goes in, but the moment never registers. And when the moment doesn't register, satisfaction doesn't either. Which is part of why so many people eat a full meal and still feel like something's missing. The sixth habit is about seasons. And this one goes deeper than it sounds. There's a long tradition of noticing seasonal change. The exact week cherry blossoms bloom, the shift in the color of light, the first cool morning after a long summer. People plan around it. They talk about it. They build small rituals around noticing time pass through nature instead of through a calendar app. When was the last time you noticed a season changing, really noticed it, instead of just registering that it got cold enough to need a jacket? Most of us live inside boxes now, car, office, home, with climate control erasing every seasonal cue our bodies used to run on. We've disconnected from the rhythm we evolved inside of, and then we wonder why our energy feels flat and directionless, like it has nothing to move with. That disconnection is worth sitting with for a second, because it explains something a lot of people quietly feel but rarely name. This sense of being unanchored, like every day blurs into the next with nothing to mark the passage of time. Nature used to do that marking for us automatically. Now we have to do it on purpose, or it doesn't happen at all. The seventh habit is bowing, and I don't mean the formal, deep bow you picture from movies. I mean the small nod, the slight inclination of the head that happens dozens of times a day between ordinary people doing ordinary things. It looks like a formality. It isn't. It's a repeated physical acknowledgement of another person's presence. Not a transaction, not a glance, an actual, if brief, recognition. I see you right now in this moment. How many people do you walk past in a single day without any real acknowledgement at all? The cashier, the neighbor, the coworker in the hallway you nod at without really looking. Every one of those is a tiny missed connection, and connection, it turns out, is not a luxury for your energy. It's fuel. Let's pause here for something more direct, because if you've made it this far, you clearly care about actually changing how your days feel, not just watching a video about it. The material connected to everything you're hearing goes much deeper than what fits into 10 or 15 minutes. It covers the exact order to build these habits in so they don't collapse after a week, the specific mistakes that make people quit by day 4, and 3 additional practices that didn't make it into this video because they need more room to explain properly. It's linked in the description and pinned in the first comment. People who've gone through it describe the same thing. Not a dramatic transformation overnight, but a steady, noticeable shift within the first 2 weeks. That's the difference between hearing something and actually living it. Now, the 8th habit, and this is where things start to get a little uncomfortable in a good way. There's a concept, hard to translate directly, that's close to reading the air. It means sensing the unspoken mood of a room before anyone says anything, knowing when to speak and when silence serves better. It's treated as a basic social skill, not an advanced one. Most of us barrel through rooms without reading anything. We say what we're thinking the second we think it. We fill silence because silence feels uncomfortable, not because filling it adds anything. And every time we do that, we spend energy pushing against a current we didn't even notice was there. Reading the room isn't about suppressing yourself, it's about timing. The same words at the wrong moment cost you socially and emotionally. The same words at the right moment cost you nothing and land 10 times harder. Once you start paying attention to timing instead of just impulse, you'll notice how much smoother your interactions become and how much less residual tension you carry out of them. The 9th habit is craftsmanship, but not in the way you think. Watch someone who has spent 30 years making the same dish, the same way, refining it slightly year after year. It's not about mastering something impressive. It's about the decision to go deep instead of wide, to find meaning in repetition instead of running from it. Most of us have been taught the opposite. Chase the new thing, start over, reinvent constantly. And there's a kind of exhaustion that comes from that too, and the exhaustion of never letting anything become effortless because you keep abandoning it before it has the chance. There's real energy sitting inside mastery, inside doing one thing enough times that your body stops fighting it and starts flowing through it. You've probably felt this before. In some small skill you didn't even try to master, you just kept doing it. And one day it stopped being effort. That feeling is available in far more areas of your life than you currently allow it to be. The 10th habit is gratitude, but stripped of the version you're used to. Not gratitude journals, not forced positivity. A quieter kind, noticing out loud sometimes the ordinary things that function correctly. Thanking the person who made your food, acknowledging a train that arrived on time. It's not performative, it's just accurate. Things worked, and someone or something made that happen, and it gets a small, honest acknowledgement. Contrast that with how most of us relate to the ordinary. We only notice things when they break. The train that's late gets a groan. The train that's on time gets nothing because it was just supposed to work. We've built lives where only failure gets our attention. And that quietly teaches our brains to scan constantly for what's wrong, which is exhausting in a way most people never trace back to its actual source. The 11th habit is silence itself, treated as something valuable rather than something to escape. Trains that discourage phone calls, rooms where quiet is protected rather than filled. A general cultural comfort with not talking, even between people who know each other well. Silence isn't awkward there, it's just space. Think about how rarely you experience real silence. Music, podcasts, notifications, background noise. Most people fill every available second with input. And input, even pleasant input, still asks something of your attention. Real rest requires moments where nothing is asking anything of you at all. Without that, your mind never actually gets to put anything down. The 12th habit lives in how apologies are handled. Quickly, without excessive justification, without spiraling into self-punishment or long explanations. A short, sincere acknowledgement, then movement forward. Compare that to how most of us handle mistakes. We either deflect immediately, building a wall of excuses before anyone even asks, or we collapse into it, replaying the error for hours, sometimes days. Both responses cost enormous energy. Neither one actually fixes anything. A short, honest acknowledgement does more repair work than either extreme, and it costs almost nothing. The 13th habit is bathing, but not for hygiene. That part's already handled beforehand. The bath itself is for transition, a dedicated block of time where the day is allowed to end, physically and mentally, before sleep begins. Most of us don't have a transition. We go from screen to bed to trying to force sleep, with no boundary between still working and trying to rest. Your body doesn't know the day is over because you never told it. There was no signal, no threshold crossed, just an abrupt cutoff between doing and expecting to sleep, and then confusion about why sleep doesn't come easily. We're close to the end now, and I want you to notice something before we continue. Every single habit in this video has pointed at the same underlying idea from a slightly different angle. None of it is really about Japan. It's about attention, about drawing lines between states instead of letting everything blur into one long, undifferentiated stretch of low-grade stress. That's the actual transformation happening here, quietly, underneath the surface of everything you've heard so far. Before we get to the final two, if this has been landing for you, take 15 seconds right now. Subscribe so the next one finds you automatically. Tap like, because it genuinely helps this reach more people who need to hear it today. And leave a comment with which of these 13 habits hit you the hardest. I read everyone, and it helps shape exactly what gets covered next. The 14th habit is found in how work and rest are separated, physically and mentally, through small transitional rituals. Changing clothes, a short walk, a specific cup of something, anything that marks, that part is over now. We've mostly lost this. Working from the same chair we relax in, answering messages from bed. The line between on and off has dissolved almost completely for a lot of people. And without that line, your nervous system never gets the signal to actually downshift. It stays partially activated all day, every day. And that low hum of activation is exhausting in a way that's almost impossible to notice while you're inside it. You only notice it once it's gone. And the 15th habit, the last one, is the simplest. And somehow the hardest for most people to actually do, doing one thing at a time. Not multitasking disguised as efficiency. Not 5 tabs and 3 conversations running simultaneously while telling yourself you're being productive. One task, full attention, until it's finished or until a real chosen break begins. This is where everything from this video actually converges. Every habit we've walked through, the pause at the door, the tea held in both hands, the walk without tension, the tidy space, the acknowledged meal, the noticed season, the small bow, the read room, the deep craft, the quiet thanks, the protected silence, the short apology, the transitional bath, the marked end of work, every single one of them is really just this same idea, worn differently. Presence applied deliberately instead of attention scattered everywhere at once by default. You don't need to move to Japan to reclaim this. You don't need years of practice or some elaborate lifestyle overhaul. You need to start noticing where your attention leaks out without your permission and start closing those gaps. One small, deliberate moment at a time. Tomorrow morning, when you step through your own front door, notice it. Just notice it. That's where this actually begins. If any part of this stayed with you, you already know what to do. Subscribe, share this with the one person who needs to hear it today, and go close one leak, just one, before the day is over. You'll be surprised how much energy was there all along, waiting for you to simply stop letting it go.